How's it going, guys? Josh Armijo here. I hope everybody's doing good and well and stuff. I got an album review to do for you, and I'm going to show it to you right now. This is the new album from the band Whitechapel. This is self-titled. This is released on Metal Blade Records. Now, if you're not too familiar with this band, they're based out of Knoxville, Tennessee, and the best way to describe the sound of this band would be a very, very misanthropic, dirge-like, heavy and crushing style of metal that fuses elements of hardcore and death metal. Notice I say elements. I'm not saying that's what they are. I'm saying there are elements of those styles of music with this band. And therefore, it coins the term or genre known as deathcore. I'm going to be honest. I don't like a lot of deathcore, but there are some bands that I can really get great enjoyment from. Like, for example, Elijah, Older Born of Osiris, Older Suicide Silence, Molotov Solution. I know that band broke up. I'm sorry to hear that. Serpents, and of course Whitechapel. This band being one of my absolute favorites of this genre. I've been a fan of them for the last couple of years. Around 4 years ago, I got introduced to the Somatic Defilement. I was just blown away. I was blown away by how sick the album was. Not only on a vocal and lyrical front, but also a musical front. I was just amazed at how crushing and destructive the music was. Just the way the breakdowns were executed, just the way the craftsmanship in the music just shifted in pace. It was just very dirty and dingy. That's how I like my deathcore to be sometimes. Very dingy and dirty and heavy. And ever since that debut album, they've been slowly building their music to be different. Try to stray away from what they originally started, but yet still stay respectful to what they originally started. And with their last couple of albums, This Is Exile and, of course, A New Era of Corruption. I thought both of those albums were pretty solid. Personally, I don't feel they matched the debut, but I enjoyed them both regardless. They came out with an EP of random tracks, one of the new songs being Section 8. I thought that song was just disgusting. I love that song. And they have a new drummer. If I'm not mistaken, he used to play for a band called Knights of the Abyss. Really, really top quality band, in my opinion. Now we get to 2012, and we get their new self-titled album. It's 10 tracks, and I want to say it runs around 37 to 38 minutes. I really, really enjoy the pace of this album. Most of the songs fly by at a rather good, solid pace. Nothing to really overly fill you over. It just goes on right along really nicely. But then when I gave this album the few proper listens that I did, I really came to the conclusion that if you are coming into this album expecting the Whitechapel of the last couple of records, you're in for a rude awakening. This album is by far the most different thing this band has ever done, both musically and lyrically. And at first it was hard for me to comprehend, but after a while it grew on me. It grew on me, and I began to enjoy it a lot more. And honestly, this is a band that's trying to stray away from their roots, so to speak. Keep their roots, but not really try to overly copy it or emulate it. And I appreciate what this band is doing with this album. Guitar-wise, it's your usual Whitechapel guitar. This band gets maligned so much for having 3 guitars. I mean, they're not the first band to do it, and they won't be the last. Every guitar on here is used to its most proper extent. You get a lot of heavy, heavy riffs. Not crushing Whitechapel riffs, like let's say on the Somatic Defilement or This Is Exile. You're not going to get those kind of guitar riffs. You're going to get a lot more melodic material going on here. And the melodic material is really, really good. I'm really liking the way the guitars blend in with each other, like on the tracks Make It Bleed and Faces. Those songs really, really have... I take it back, not Faces, I think Culturalist. those songs have really, really awesome guitar melodies, and the solos on those songs really, really work well. I love what I hear. Bass-wise, the bass is very, very clear, very audible. You can hear it quite well. You think with a band that's dominated by multiple guitars, you would think that the bass would get drowned out. You can hear it quite well. It's not too loud, but it's a nice mix. You can hear it well. It's very audible. Drum-wise, the drums are not as chaotic and as frantic as Whitechapel albums past. It seems as if the drums are easing back just a little bit. And either way, you're going to get some really, really solid drum work going on here. The double bass, when it shows up, is really, really well crafted. I like the way that the rolls and the blasts are. It's a little hard to adjust to at first, but then you'll get comfortable with it. And I really enjoy the standard kind of thrashy kind of beats. Really, really solid drum work. Just not as overly complicated and as previous Whitechapel records. And now we get to Phil Bozeman. Phil Bozeman is one of the best vocalists of this style of music. His vocals are just absolutely skull-crushing. His lows are some of the most beastliest lows I've ever heard, and his highs are pretty solid too. But on this album, it seems as though he's trying to make his vocal style a little bit more accessible. He's a lot more clearer and concise. You can understand him a lot better, both from his guttural tone and his mid to high-pitched screams. I honestly could have done without the spoken word stuff, because on songs like Hate Creation and I Dementia, you hear the spoken word stuff. Personally, I don't feel him to be that type of a vocalist. I appreciate his lows and his highs. I just don't see him doing the whole angry spoken word rant kind of thing. I'm used to hearing stuff like that on nu metal and traditional hardcore stuff, but not on Whitechapel. But that's just a personal complaint of mine. And there's this one lyric on this song, because if you pay attention to some of the lyrics, they do have the usual Whitechapel angst of hatred amongst mankind and politics and the world and all that stuff. There's a lyric at the beginning of the song Make It Bleed, after you get past the really solid piano solo. You get the lyric, "We've been somatically defiled, exiled, and now this new era has to come to an end." It's pretty telling in a way, because they've gone from those first 3 albums to this new sound. And I'm pretty sure that this may be the sound we may hear from Whitechapel in future albums to come. You never ever know. But it works. I think it works very well. So overall, I really, really enjoyed this album. It was hard to get into for the first few listens, but it grew with me with time, and I enjoyed it. I think it's really, really solid stuff. I love the fact that they are trying to stray away from their deathcore roots just a little bit, but still maintain some of the heaviness that they've had on previous albums past. I wouldn't say still this is their best work, but I appreciate them trying to do something different, try to do something a little bit more accessible and more creative. And if this style of music is not your thing, simply move along to something else that's better suited for your musical palates. I know not everybody likes deathcore, but I know there are some people who do. And if you're a Whitechapel fan, you probably will get enjoyment from this record. And by the way, Section 8 is on this song. I think it's a great song, but it does seem a little bit frantic and chaotic compared to the melodies and progressive elements of this album. So, out of my favorite songs, some of them include Make It Bleed, Culturalist, Faces, and Dead Silence. So I'm going to show you the album again. This is a self-titled new album from Whitechapel. This is released on Metal Blade Records. Go pick this up if you happen to enjoy it. And as far as the score is concerned, this gets an 8 out of 10. Very, very solid 8 out of 10. Really good record from Whitechapel. But yeah, that's just me. Hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't like it, simply move along to something else. So 8 out of 10, check out Whitechapel. I'm going to conclude this review. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for checking out my channel. And until the next time, Army Hill out.